But shifting gears to the issue of unitary state, it goes to the heart of the thinking of the Jubilee administration. They believe devolution and devolved governments are little units there, a footnote really to the national government. So what we are seeing in devolution, and devolution of power, public participation are national values. Apart from having entire chapters and sovereignty being exercised, devolution is really at the heart of the Constitution. The Jubilee administration ideologically does not accept that power has shifted. So national government has continued to grow. In fact, the wage bill has grown by 40% since the administration came in. Yet functions are supposed to have gone to the counties. The percentage share to county governments is decreasing this financial year as a part of the overall.
We will deal with devolution later on.
Yes.
I would like us to deal with another subject, which is national unity, which a lot of Kenya, when the president was elected after 2013, almost half the people did not vote for him. A lot of Kenyans think they are excluded from that. And a lot of people have written during the last week, including my friend here from Emmanuel. And I know I called Dr. Ndei. They have written arguing that the solution to this problem of disunity is that we negotiate our separation. We separate. Yes. They call it it's a marriage, we need a divorce. Some other people think it's not a marriage. It is childbirth. Yes. And we are brought up. Anyway, put your case.
Yes, my case is very simple. That which we call Kenya, who is an artificial kind of entity. It was put together by the colonial dispensation, that you can go back to 1895 with Arthur Harding declaring the protectorate, and therefore certain people who had never had anything in common coming together under the British Crown, that the protectorate transforms into a colony, and that eventually more people are brought into that expression, others are separated. If you want, go back to history, and I know that there are people, including Deputy President, who say that we should not learn anything about history, but history tells us that the boundaries of this country have changed 6 times. And the boundaries of other places have also changed very many times. When we went to Lancaster, therefore, we were moving away from the law of the British Crown, and we were asking ourselves, how are we going to rule ourselves and live together in the future? And the fears that we are seeing today were there in 1961, they were there in 1962. That's why some people were saying we want Majimbo, others were saying we want a unitary state professor. And Jomo Kenyatta, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga said, let us accept this constitution that these other people are saying that we want, although we don't want it. When we get back home, we shall change it. And they got back home, they changed it. In the fullness of time, we are seeing the fears that people had in the late 50s, in the early 60s at play. And we are saying that we have failed the test of nationalism. That when we talk about national cohesion and integration, it cannot be about 2 communities. It cannot be about 3 communities. In 1961-62, people were afraid of being dominated by 2 communities which are different from the 2 communities that are today dominating. And when you come and tell people things like we are going to rule you for 100 years, basically people are hearing you to be telling them that we are going to dominate and oppress you for 200 years, for 100 years, because they do not engage in an exercise that tries to bring people together. Yes, give them. That when you look at 2007, 2008, the communities that were most adversely affected in the conflicts and the violence that we saw at that time have come together, which is a good thing. We give them credit. But they have come together at the expense of the rest of the country. They are leaving out everybody else. If you and I unite, our unity is as good as the purpose for which we unite. If you and I unite so that we oppress the others here, or we are seen or perceived to be oppressing the others, then our unity is a conspiracy. And to get away from this, because we are moving into very dangerous space where this issue has got to be addressed one way or the other, we either begin a conversation about it and say this is how we remedy it, or if we cannot remedy it that way, we give people the opportunity for self-determination under a different arrangement.
Mutava Musemi wrote an article in Sunday Nation completely disagreeing with that.
Mutava Musemi is part of the problem. He was part of the solution when he was Reverend Mutava Musemi going to Fungamano House. He got inside the house of the Pharaoh and he now weeps louder than the bereaved.
Let us hear from the professor, because I would like you to address the question whether you think the president, since he was elected in 2013, he has made serious efforts to be inclusive, so that he is not seen the way you are hearing two tribes.
Let me first of all say this as an intellectual.
Address the Wananchi.
Yes.
And
that's okay, as an intellectual, and from where I see it, because that's why you invited me. The concept of unity is itself very problematic. Let's start from there. Problematic in the sense that the best unity you find is among robbers alleging to rob a bank. The concept of unity.
It's called a conspiracy.
Yeah. That's unity. So unity, as used in the country, sometimes is lacking. I think we need to go to the fundamental values, as Wajiro keep on reminding us. Question of justice, equality, and those values that are deliverable are the key things that we need. Unity can be an ideology, and as I said, the best you find is among thieves organizing to rob a bank. But what you are asking is whether we are talking about the national unity, the concept of nation. And I think the concept of nation in America, in Britain, they have been voting whether Scotland should go alone or not. The question of the nation state is a contested concept across the world. Let's get that. Therefore, even in Kenya, it is still work in progress. And we have to be determined to build it. Now, has the government done anything about that? Before 2013, and I'm saying this as a scholar who took part in that fight as part of the Kibaki administration, experts. The first decision that the president made, contrary to everybody else, was that we must ensure that the people of the Rift Valley and the people of Kenya are united so that the country does not fight again. That decision he made. And it was very unpopular, I must tell you that. It was extremely unpopular, particularly in view of 2007. It was very unpopular. He crusaded for it, convinced the administration and everybody else that we don't have to be enemies, we can work. That is what gave birth to what you find today, Jubilee. What other unity would you be fighting for? Then the next thing is, let's go on.
Let's go on.
Let's go on. Forget about the rest. That's the country called Kenya. The country called Kenya. I'm not done.
Go on.
The first problem was to get Kenya from where it was in 2007, 2008. Where it was the brink of collapse because of war, almost a near civil war. So getting it from there and demolishing the architecture that had brought this was very, very important. That was done. After the election, but let's be statistical about this. The Kalenjin constituted 12% of the national population. The Kikuyu, in total, counted to a person, constitute 22% of the population. That gives you 34% of the population. That is not equivalent to 50.7% of the vote they got. So the idea that this is a Kalenjin government is a mirage. It's a lie. Because 4% cannot be equivalent to 50%. So in the first place, there is a propaganda base there. There are Kenyans from northeastern, from Coast Province, from other parts who voted with the Jubilee. That's the part we don't want to agree. Because 50 cannot come from two communities. That's a fact. So the moment you continue saying two communities,
I think it's stepping.
No, I'm not.
You're not addressing the issue.
That's the point.
Please, you're not bring the issue as it is.
I think the intellectualism has missed the point.
Give him a chance.
But
let me finish. Until you demolish farces and myths that are not based on anything but quicksand, then you cannot have a legitimate, logical, rational argument. The rational argument is that there is will on the part of Jubilee government to bring the unity of the country.
There is will.
Which is basically why the president camped at the Coast Province. And the result was clear.
Hold it.
The results were clear. In the Maridi by-election, The president's vote moved from what it was about about 20% to almost 50%.
No,
So
there's nothing like that. I think this gentleman is misleading.
No. Let's hear the member talking.
Thank you. You know, the issue of national unity can only be brought by the head of state. Those people who have been given the responsibility to govern this country. By their actions, how do they govern? And let's be very basic here. How do they govern? We go to appointments in government. How is the appointment done in government? From all the regions must be all inclusive. Who is appointed from where? Who is from which place? Because those actions is what will make the country come together or separate. Allocation of resources. That's the key thing here. Because when you look...
There are people who think that the president has appointed people from all over Kenya.
The statistics is there to show. This is not something we can hide. The statistics there to show. It is open. If there is an appointment today of a parastatal body, right, you'll find 80% of those appointments are from two communities, or 90%. It's a fact statement. And when you do 80%, he has rightly said that the national population of the two communities, the Karaji and the Kikuyus, is that 4. That's 80% of the appointment give a reflection of that 4%. Because the cohesion of this country can only be implemented. And I can tell you another example. The deputy president goes place like in Kisi. He starts telling us, look guys, you made a mistake to vote. All right? He's telling us we are not going to give you money for development. And we know very well that allocation of funds is done by the National Assembly. But when you go to Kisi, true, we don't have roads. And the professor said here that Jubilee has profile 68% of their manifesto. It's true probably in other areas. But where I come from and other areas, we don't see those facilities, the infrastructure, be it healthcare, we don't see it.
Let's talk about national unity.
National unity.
Yes.
So national unity can only be bought if allocation of resources is seen. It must be seen by everybody that this decision is fair. This decision, yes, that community is represented. That community is represented. It is from coast, if from
what is called the face of Kenya.
What you call rightly the face of Kenya. And where we are now, increasingly, every day, all appointments which are being made, even the latest appointment which were done, where Franklin Bett was appointed, where Kosgei was given a job, and others, right? Was from one region.
Okay, let him say something. Let me come to you.
Let me finish. Will those appointments make Kenyans, other Kenyans, think we have one nation?
Okay, let him answer.
I think, again, let me play my role as an intellectual. There's an election coming next year. There was an election in 2013. What are elections about? Election is about winning so that you govern. And governing is with those that you feel are going to help you to govern. Now the problem of the opposition here is that you lose an election and still want to talk about the stalwarts and the veterans being in the government. So we have not gotten of this hang-up about power sharing.
I think we need to put in our
power sharing. It's true. We have not gotten over this hang-up about power sharing, because losing an election means literally losing the opportunity to govern.
I think we must correct this.
Are we having two countries? I think what you're saying, what is advocating here, that if you lose from your own country, and if you win from your own government. That's what he's saying. He's saying, if you lose, you get 0.
No.
If you win, you take it all.
I didn't say that.
And if that's a thinking,
I didn't say that.
If that is
I didn't say that.
Gentlemen.
Just give me a minute. What he's saying is this: if you lose,
he says he didn't say so.
Can you allow me to speak for myself?
Can you allow me to interject, since you've had a lot?
Allow me to speak for myself.
And the point is, when we're talking about unity, the question we're asking is, has the president done enough to unify the country?
Exactly, that's the question.
The country has historical fractions that and is predisposed to electoral violence, especially around elections and resource sharing. So when we are measuring this from the State of the Nation address, what will we expect to hear the president saying? What is it that brings the nation together? And I agree with Mheshimiwa there. It's about the style of governance. Unfortunately, the president, the DP, was schooled in the Moi era. They understand only coercive governance. Yet, the constitutional dispensation is one of cooperative governance. So that they are supposed to, even though they are the holders of power, the winner-takes-all mentality was supposed to be done with. In fact, the idea behind the 50+1 was partly to try and deal with that. The constitution possibly did not go far enough. So one of the ways that they have, this administration has further marginalized parts of this country is a lot of jingoism, too much ethnicism, Mount Kenya coming and being perceived as really the tenderpreneurs who are benefiting together with, you know, those allied to people in government. So there's this perception that state resources are still not equitably accessible because the big national government contracts are going to people who are linked to the power. The other aspect that was supposed to bring unity was devolved government. How has the administration dealt with this? They have dealt with devolution coercively. They make decisions at the top, like the health procurement process.
Devolution, we talk later.
But you see,
but it's part of
this
it.
is part of what is dividing the country, because the refusal to share resources then creates a perception that you have to be in power to benefit.
Exactly.
So if we are not in power, then like David D says, we are not going to be subject to your tyranny of numbers.
Exactly.
Who says we have to sit here and wait for tyranny? So the problem with the administration is that they need to fire their advisors, bring on people like David D, who can tell them a country called Kenya cannot be ruled through coercive power and winner takes all. You actually need to give a proper place to negotiate, and the president has not been weakened. There's this perception, and it's been perpetrated by the advisors of president who tell him he's been weakened by the constitution. Unless he can appoint the IG, unless he can appoint the CJ, unless he can control the institutions of state, he's powerless. They have missed the point that the constitution is a consultative governance. The president is supposed to lead by ideological persuasion, to convince the opposition, to convince the devolved governments that this is the way we must drive our security, and to make a compelling argument that forces them to come round to it. And ultimately, he is the head of state and he has that executive authority. But the coercive approach really has been so detrimental, and then the failure to get out to distinguish between elections and governing is the other problem, and we can hear it with Professor. Because you need to know you have won the election and you need to first run the country for everybody. But Jubilee, through the use of funds, through the use of its appointments, continues to do elections, because everything they are doing is geared towards 2017. This is just fueling dissent and making parts of the country that are not in government really feel, come elections, we don't trust the IEBC, we don't feel we are included in this country and in governance matters, so that either the elections will be, again, contested and there will be conflict around it, or this sense of we better leave this table because tyranny of numbers is not the way we want to be governed. But
democracy is about tyranny of numbers. That is what democracy is all
tyranny,
about. Let's not take down the no, it is not about it's a competition where you go and get the majority so that you are declared the winner. So you have demonized the concept of the tyranny of numbers to justify failure to mobilize Kenyans.
Professor is not right here. You know, the notions of tyranny and democracy are mutually exclusive. They never go together. I'm also an intellectual professor, and we intellectuals listen to one another. That's why I've been keeping quiet while you spoke. The notion of tyranny, of numbers, is very different from what you would want to call a majoritarian outcome of an election. And there are certain ways in which those who are majoritarian in terms of what you may want to call greed, rather than ideological kind of demarcations, can dominate others forever. that you can say because we are very many and the only thing that brings us is that we are of a certain breed, we have got the numbers. And we hear about that even in Parliament, where Mheshimiwa here sits. People saying we have got the numbers, we have got the tyranny of numbers in Parliament. Tyranny and decision making in Parliament can never go together. When these people are taking the oath of office, they say, and I will serve conscientiously. That means that I'm going to be governed by my conscience and not by any tyrannical considerations. Fine, you have won the election and therefore the instruments of state have been bequeathed to you. You're given the instruments of state, you are going to govern. And as you govern, you must remember that one of your foremost duties is to bring everybody together. And within the public service, there's depoliticization. You cannot look at public servants and say, because the Luhya of Kakamega did not vote for me, we systematically weed them out of government and look for Kikuyu who voted for us, look for Kalenjin who voted for us, and other subsidiaries who may have voted for us. And when we go to Kakamega or we go to Kisii, our task there is to tell them that you Kisii people made a mistake. I cannot make a mistake by exercising my democratic conscience and freedom and saying I'm going to vote for Wanjiru. And there are people within Kisii who voted for Jubilee, never mind that they may not have got and there are people in Luoland who voted for Jubilee. I agree with you that they were voted for by people from other parts of the country, and that's what we want to encourage. And therefore, when you get into government, remember that you are dealing with a depoliticized entity, and if it is politicized, it's your responsibility to depoliticize it and have the face of Kenya in that country. And I agree completely with Wanjiru, without jingoism, without arrogance. You cannot go to Malindi and tell the people of Malindi that we know you people of Malindi did not vote for us, but now we are asking you to vote for us so that we can also bring development here. Those are the things that create this perception that this government is not trying to do much about national cohesion and integration, and it's not about the kind of spinning that intellectuals like my friend here are doing, because we are dealing with a very acerbic reality that we are gravitating towards an election. That as we gravitate towards this election, in reality we are polarized along ethnic lines, including both those who are willing to be part of that polarity and those who are not willing to be part of that polarity. They are being forced to be part of it. We are dealing with an election commission that behaves as if it is a poodle in the lap of Jubilee, that when they talk to the opposition, you can see the chairman of the commission gloating. You can see his face shining with the blessedness and happiness, and telling these guys, you have lost. You know, I have never seen in my entire life a referee who celebrates because one side has scored and one side has been defeated. You must maintain positive neutrality. If this